We're live.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to a brand new Motivation Monday episode. I just want to give a little disclosure here. We will be talking about sensitive topics today, so there is a fair warning in play. But for now, we shall get right into our quote of the day. Travis, take us away.
I probably should have been a little bit more prepared here, as somebody's been telling us. Okay, quote of the day. Anyone who uses blame as the reason why something happened or did not happen will not accumulate real success in their life, and only will further his and her status as a slave on planet Earth. That was Grant Cardone?
Cordon.
Cordon.
Good, close enough.
Cordon Bleu?
So what he's saying here is take control of your actions, be responsible, just don't put blame on others, because I know a lot of people out there do that, and unfortunately it doesn't get them anywhere, right? They just look for excuses, they look for people to put the blame on so they don't have to accept responsibility for their actions. But Grant here is talking the opposite of that. You need to take responsibility, therefore you can better yourself, and that way you don't have to be, as he calls it, a slave on planet Earth.
No, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
I've met a few people who are like that. Instead of taking accountability for what goes on in their lives, accidents happen, mistakes happen, and we go through hard times. But it's taking charge and taking accountability for what happens in your future and making plans in order to combat those negative effects of your life.
Exactly. So I'm actually reading his book right now. It's called The Rules of 10x Thinking. If anyone is listening out there who would really enjoy that, I think you should go check it out on Audible or anywhere that is sold.
Oh, I love Audible.
All right, so let's get into our good stories for today. What's our first story, Travis?
Let's start it off with these LED lights. So actually, this is something that hits close to home because my brother is actually dyslexic, and it's had some negative impacts in his life. And basically, what they did here is they actually figured out how to make LED lights flicker at a specific frequency, which helps people with dyslexia read correctly.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, super.
So just a bunch of LED lamps that do that, right?
Yeah.
Wow. That's some good
LED
news.
technology, definitely the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do we got on over here? Nuclear fusion, clean energy. Who doesn't want more limitless energy? So we can have more computers,
More podcasts.
more podcasts. Cheaper energy could actually be pretty awesome.
But yeah, so a team is developing a fusion reactor that is actually hotter than the sun, it says?
Yeah, hotter than the sun.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that will develop clean energy to hopefully spread around the world.
4 times as much without the risk of meltdowns. I didn't actually notice that earlier.
Wow. There you go. Even better news. That's incredible.
And then, what happened last Wednesday? We got some
We got some
even
good news.
better news.
Yeah.
In my opinion, anyways.
As many of our fellow followers know, that my wife is pregnant, and we just found out that it's a girl. So there's a Facebook post of us. We made a cake for our parents, and they cut into it, and they found out it was pink batter, which means it's a girl, and our moms freaked out just a little bit. So I figured I'd share with you all today. I'm having a girl, and I'm going to be a dad, and I'm really excited.
That is exciting news.
All right, so let's dive into our first topic of today. What is our first topic, Travis?
Let's go back to the overview. Our first topic is differentiating between toxic people and abusive people. And
Right.
there is a huge distinction there.
Oh, absolutely. So, in my opinion, a toxic person was brought up in a toxic household. Like, they were raised that way, They were taught to bring negative energy to a conversation, and that ultimately brings people down instead of raises them up. So if a toxic person is talking to you and have a bad day, it's they're gonna put that out on you, and ultimately you're gonna leave that conversation not feeling the greatest, right? So unfortunately, a toxic person can come from where you least expect it. So it could be a best friend, a lover, a parent, a mentor. So I just want to spread the word out there and say, yes, there are toxic people, but they may not be doing it intentionally. And you had a good point about this too, didn't you, Travis?
Yeah, just while we were bantering, getting ready for the podcast, and I was reading through the notes trying to get familiar with it, I was like, toxic people do not normally realize they are causing harm.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were saying, it's a product of their environment. Whereas abusive people are intentionally causing harm, usually in order to assert a position of power or make other people feel the pain that they have internalized.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
They're outlashing.
Yeah. So we went over toxic, and now let's go over abuse. So an abusive person uses intentional violence, varying from verbal, mental, or physical. And most abusers tend to have narcissistic personalities, and they will tear you down and rebuild you in their own image. And I believe
Chills.
a lot of people out there are experiencing abuse right now. So according to mentalhealth.net, every minute approximately 20 people are the victim of physical abuse by an intimate partner in the United States. 20 people a minute. Do the math on that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I actually don't want to do the math on that. That's insane.
Yeah. And each year, over 10 million Americans are subject to psychological and physical abuse from people that they love and trust the most. And that's where it's really dangerous.
Yeah, because you don't expect it from the people closest to you.
Mm-hmm. So we have a little list that that we made up to look for signs of someone that you know, or if it's you, that you're in an abusive relationship. So do you want to start off with number one?
Number one would be calling someone names or putting someone down. That's normally we'd seen that as harmless banter, but that is a form of abuse, and we tend to abuse the people that we have closest to us. So something that seems as harmless as calling somebody a name.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I do have something on that. So whenever I was a kid, my grandmother actually coined the nickname Travelina.
Okay.
Now, something not as an adult would seem harmless, but as a young growing boy, that actually hurt because it was not just once or twice or poking fun at me like a little bit, but it was constant, and it was every time I was going over to my grandparents' house. That's what I was being called. And yeah, so abuse from home.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you shared that, so I appreciate it. Our number two going down the list is shouting and cursing. There are differences between quarrels, couples arguments, that kind of thing. But if they're yelling at you constantly and cursing at you, swearing and putting you down with negative energy, I classify that as abuse.
Yeah, definitely. That kind of reminds me of the alcoholic uncle. Like just getting drunk, shouting at his wife or husband, and cursing.
Yeah. So it's not a real fun time for that one. And to go along with the shouting and cursing, they could also make threats. Serious threats, non-serious, verbal, non-verbal. A threat is a threat, and it should not be taken lightly.
No, never.
They will also experience extreme jealousy and suspicion. I've had a lot of experience with this one. If I went out with friends and I didn't immediately call or text my ex at a specific time or right away, she would get jealous, and then by the time I got home, I'd have a list of everything that I did wrong. Right? So they just get really jealous, and they are suspicious of your actions, and they might even accuse you of doing something that you never even thought of doing.
It sounds like somebody like projecting their internal insecurities and causing something which is coined as Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
You get hit with that abuse all the time, and then you're afraid to leave it because you've been devalued so much.
Exactly. That's what I was talking about. How they just tear you down and rebuilding their image.
Yeah.
And then ultimately you're afraid to leave. And then with that, they also keep you away from your loved ones, so you won't be able to see your friends and family as often or even ever. We know of some cases out there that an abusive relationship kept the other one locked up in a basement. Like, it does happen, and it's really sad.
The Princess in the Tower.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Disney's made a lot of money off of that one.
Yeah. And to go along with the swearing and shouting, they might even throw things around the house or at other people in a violent manner.
Yeah, I've experienced that a little bit.
Yeah, that plates thrown at you, they break, and it could be on you, and that's not cool. So we need to stop that, for sure. Now, here are signs of a toxic relationship. It's a little bit longer.
I was gonna say I forgot how long my list was, and I was typing it up earlier.
Yeah, so they'll give you lack of support. There is toxic communication.
What would be an example of toxic communication?
So someone constantly talking about their childhood, how negative it was, and there's just not a lot of positive in their life, so they have to revert back to that, and they constantly talk about what hurt them, what made them this way, and they didn't seek help, or they didn't trust in someone enough to talk about it, so they're talking to you about it, and it's just a lot of heavy emotions, and by the end of it, you just leave very down and ultimately exhausted, mentally exhausted from toxic communication. They'll experience jealousy, so if you're hanging out with different people, this person might be more jealous and want to steal your time away from you, and
expanding your friend circle, but not wanting to be within that circle.
Exactly.
Themselves.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
They'll have controlling behaviors, so they'll want to text me at this time, call me at this time, that kind of thing, right? So they want to control your behaviors. So if you're at a dinner party or something with your significant other who is a toxic person, they might tell you in advance or even during the conversation, hey, don't laugh at that. I should be the one to laugh. Because that's them controlling, right? Maybe it's in front of their family, so they feel like they are the only ones who belong in this conversation, and you should just sit put and be quiet.
I feel like Spock is being a controlling individual right now over there.
He just wants all the attention. They will also experience resentment, maybe towards you, maybe towards other people, but there's honestly, there's not happy people, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a trend here.
Mm-hmm. Like, you go down the list, there's dishonesty, patterns of disrespect, negative financial behaviors. Oh,
that's an interesting
one. That is an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of want to hear more about that.
Yeah. So let me ask you first, what would you classify as a negative financial behavior?
Well, I feel like there's two classifications. Mm-hmm. One of them would be mismanagement of personal finances.
Right.
Another one would be, why are you spending your money on that?
Okay, so again, comes to the controlling aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
So the first one that you touched upon was spending their money in an unreasonable way, their personal reasons why.
Yeah, like, hey, instead of going out and getting that bag of milk, I went out and I bought a Star Wars figurine. Yeah. But then I went to my best friend and I complained that I didn't have enough money for food.
Right.
Yeah, like
That's a perfect example.
that, and then also the envy
Mm.
of, oh, well, he just bought a new car, not realizing that, hey, my best friend saved for 6 months in order to buy that new car.
Yeah.
But then I'm getting all negative towards him because I don't think he needed a new car.
Yeah. And another example I can think of right off my head is instead of putting money towards rent, you go out and buy, say, a boat that you don't need.
Oh, I've seen that before.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've all seen it. There's just so many examples out there of unreasonable financial decisions that people tend to make. And the second point that you had was controlling your partner's inability to spend money, right? So, and an example that I have is that, I'll put this as air quotations, men should be the breadwinner, right? They bring home the money, and they're the ones that are in control of the money, so they should be able to spend it however they please. And if their partner goes out and buys something for themselves, then they're going to get mad and they're going to get jealous.
I'm not going to lie. I used to get really, really self-conscious if in a relationship I wasn't the one making the more money. As I got older, I got more mature and I realized that's an archaic way of thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I would actually get upset whenever my significant other wouldn't let me buy them stuff.
Right.
So not necessarily negative in terms of controlling their finances, but it was still a toxic way of thinking.
It was, for sure. And I'm glad you realized, and now you're doing a lot better.
Oh, it took me a while to get over that point of pride.
It will, for sure. And then going down the list even still, I know there's a lot here, but it's really important that we stress on every point here. A toxic person will be in constant stress.
Now, stress not being necessarily a negative thing. We need stress in our lives in order to make us perform.
Yeah, of course.
But it's not mitigating those stresses by making important financial decisions, important social decisions, like appropriate ones where it's like, hey, it's not a bad thing to go out with my friends on a Friday night.
Exactly.
Oh, my significant other can also go out with his or her friends, and I shouldn't have to worry about that.
Right, exactly. And another one that I see all the time is people complaining that they're tired. Yeah. And they don't eat well, and they're constantly under stress because they're tired, they're not eating well, so that makes them more tired and less likely to eat well.
Yeah.
Because it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Cyclical effect.
Exactly.
You're stuck in that swamp and you're never getting out of it. And then you're trying to bring people into the swamp with you because you're like, hey, the swamp's comfortable.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Hey, guys, come out. Come with me in this swamp. And then you get in there. Now you're covered in goo.
Yeah.
And then you start bringing other people in. And it's like, now everybody in my social circle is stuck in this swamp and nobody's wanting to get out.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And while people are complaining about their problems to you, they're also going to ignore your needs. So what if you had a bad day and you want to go and rant or tell someone about it to a toxic person? They're not going to hear you out. If you're having a bad day, it's like, oh yeah, mine was worse. You hear it all the time. It's like, how do you know?
I see it all the time with my physical problems. Oh, my shoulder's really acting up. Oh, yeah, well, my back's acting up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, my knee's acting up.
Yeah.
Oh, my sciatica's really bad today.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I wanted to complain about my shoulder. I didn't want to hear you complain about your back.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people will do that, unfortunately. And it causes people to lose relationships. And that's the next topic there is lost relationships. Like, people with this constant negative attitude, people will step away and they will see that the person is not taking care of themselves.
And that actually is a cyclical effect, which gets back all the way up here to resentment.
Exactly.
And then more toxic communication.
Right? You see how it's all connected, right?
It's all coming together.
And then another big one that I really wanted to focus on is hoping for change. Instead of doing something, they're hoping it will change for them. They
no
don't
action plan, no goal setting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's really frustrating to someone who has it together. And a bit of advice that they can give is, why don't you do something about it? It's like, well, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. It's like, do your homework. You can make the change that you want to see in your life.
Stop eating pizza 3 times a week.
Yeah,
Put
Travis.
that money aside. It's once a week. It's every Thursday.
Healthy. There you go.
Goal setting. I can't quit cold turkey, man. Like that sauce, that pizza sauce. I crave it. But I also know it's bad for me, so I make sure I only eat it once a week.
Yeah. And the last little bit here is walking on eggshells.
But I really like eggs.
Nice.
Sorry,
But yeah.
I've been waiting for that. I really have. I know it's a terrible dad joke, but
yeah, so you're always afraid to say what you think because you know that person's going to get upset or mad.
And isn't that a part of a healthy relationship?
Yeah.
Is being able to openly talk.
Express yourself, being open and honest.
Yeah.
And again, taking responsibility for your actions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have to constantly walk on eggshells around someone, then you're bottling all this up, and then you might take that home to your significant other and then yell at them, and then you have to take responsibility for your actions. So it's a vicious cycle that we need to spot right away if we can, and learn how to deal with it, and hopefully get to people who need the help.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I need water.
Yeah, while you do that, I'll talk about another little note here that we have is people who put blame on others and do not take responsibilities for their actions will always lack a sense of accomplishment and will not improve their well-being. So that kind of goes with our quote of the day, actually. I'll just reiterate that people who don't take responsibility for their actions and find people to put blame they won't progress their own lives. They'll always sit back and look for someone else to blame. And if you have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, well, that really does go into goal setting, which is something we spoke of last week. People are proud.
Yes.
And not to get all religious on people, 7 deadly sins, one of them's pride.
Exactly.
And when we let pride control us, we don't take accountability for our actions. Mm-hmm. And again, that's something that I had to learn was instead of making excuses, make plans.
Yes.
Like, okay, yeah, I messed up. Mm-hmm. Own up to the fact that I messed up, but also offer up a solution. How can I prevent that mess up in the future? So it's like, oh, dang it, I forgot to update my bank account information. Mm-hmm. My insurance came out of the wrong account. Well, maybe I should have made a list.
Yeah.
Reminded myself to, hey, go out to the bank, change my banking information. So then my insurance does come out of the proper account, mm-hmm. and then I'm not paying overdraft fees, NSF charges,
exactly.
Which then puts you in a cyclical financial distress. Like, just own up to it. Yeah, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Make that phone call, make that action plan, and then start healing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point. And just that's what we call victim thinking, mm-hmm. is if you're finding someone to put blame where there is no blame, they will cease to take responsibility for their own actions. Mm-hmm. And I think we touched upon that really well. And I feel like now is a good time to start change.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for it to come to us, why don't we do something about it?
We actually did a lot better with pacing. And stayed on track more. Again, we're learning.
Right? Wait, did we stop recording?
No.
Oh.
We're totally on. I didn't click stop.
Healing.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to start a new tab. There's something I forgot to put in the doc.
So yeah, we can definitely start the healing process now if we understand how to find the signs of an abusive relationship or toxic relationship. Hopefully we can get out while we still can before it gets too dark and too dim for you to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And doing that healing process, we will be there for you. If you have any comments, questions about abuse or toxic relationships, we can also message back with a helpline if you need it, because I feel like that will be reached by a lot of people. And we will end the podcast with terrible Travis dad joke. Go ahead.
So I want to add some humor to this at the end. Terrible towel, very scratchy, does not dry well, 4 out of 10. It's a cat. Oh, I'm just picturing it now. That's terrible. That is terrible. I apologize for my amazing sense of humor.
Oh, wow.
We'll end recording now.